Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to week two of our Gen AI Beyond the Basics Bootcamp on AWS. I'm your host, Shashank Danwal, and with me today is Umang, who is an AI ML specialist SA at AWS. Umang, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sashank, for the introduction here. My name is Umang Patel. I am an AI/ML specialist focusing more on generative AI aspect. I work with AWS, and I'm here with Sashank today so that way we can teach you about Gen AI and specifically prompt engineering on this video today. Thank you, Sashank.
Awesome. Thanks, Umang. So lucky to have you here. So today we'll be diving deep into one of the most important and essential skills when you're working on generative AI models, which is prompt engineering. By the end of this session, uh, I expect you'll get a very good understanding on what the prompts are, why do the prompts matter, how do you write effective, clear, and powerful prompts, apply advanced prompting techniques to get the best out of your foundational models, and then how do you evaluate and improve your prompts using manual feedback or feedback from the model itself. So all those kind of things. And then we have a bonus uh, document that we will share with you at the end of this presentation. So I highly recommend you guys go through that uh, document and then apply all the learnings that you guys get today into writing effective prompts. And prompting is more of an arts than science. So there's a lot of work that's revolves around how to write effective prompts. So without wasting any time, let's straight jump into the great topic of prompt engineering. Over to you, Umang.
Awesome. Thank you, Sashank. So let's start with what a prompt is. Um, a prompt, essentially, it is the instructions or an input that we give to a generative AI model so that we can get a specific response, right? So you can think of this as if you're talking to like a really smart intern, right? So when you are working with an intern, you need to be very clear, and Sasak mentioned, right? You need to be very clear, very specific, and very contextual so that way the intern is able to do the job that he or she is supposed to do. And some of the examples would, like a simple prompt would be, hey, tell me about AWS. Write a poem about a cat, right? Generate a SQL query or SQL query for all the orders that are over $500. Okay. So, and another a contextual prompt example would be explain Amazon Web Services in simple terms for a high school student, right? So it is able to give you a response and follow your instructions. And remember, prompts are critical because they essentially shape the model's response. And this is where, you're sending the garbage in and garbage out applies here as well. Okay. And at the same time, Sasank mentioned something about prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering is this emerging field that focuses on developing, designing, on optimizing these prompts so that we are enhancing the output of the LLM for your need. So there is a prompt, and then there is prompt engineering, which is something that Sashank highlighted earlier as well. Okay. And so now let's take a look at how we can harness and write really good prompts. Okay. And as we kind of laid out here, there is this GIST or GIST framework that we kind of have in here, right? And so for you to write a really good prompt, we'll use this GIST framework. So let's, kind of take a look at what the GIST is, right? So in the GIST framework, the G stands for the goal. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is the task? What do you want to accomplish here? Let's lay that out. Okay. Once the goal is established, then we want to focus on the instructions. Okay. That's I. That's what I, instructions or input, stands for. Okay. How should the model behave? What information are you providing to the model? Okay. And then the S, the structure or the scope. Okay. What format do you want? What is the domain or the constraints do you want this this intern or this model, the LLM, to follow? And the last thing in is the tone itself. Okay, do you want the tone to be friendly? Do you want the tone to be formal? Do you want it to be educational, like in our example earlier? Okay, what tone should it follow? Okay, and so we have an example here that says, act as a customer support agent, right? Another example is, for example, hey, write a blog post about Amazon and drop in the name of the service, let's say S3 for developers, right? So in this case, it would be the goal would be a blog post. The instructions could be informative if we are writing a blog post. The scope could be Amazon service, and the tone could be developer friendly. If we are talking about this specific example of a customer support agent, right? The goal is to act as a customer support agent. The instructions is be friendly. The scope is focusing only on customer support queries. And the tone is again friendly, right? So, and another example could be like, summarize a legal contract in simple English for me, right? Let's say the goal is summary. Instruction could be simplification, simplify. And because we're talking about legal, right? The scope would be only legal and the tone should be layman and friendly. Okay. And there are several tips, right? When we are writing these good prompts. Okay. And these are, and model provider agnostic. Okay, so some of the tips could be you have to be very specific, like we've mentioned. Give some examples, and we'll talk into more detail as we go in the videos. But give more examples, set the tone and the output format. Okay, um, and then there are some prompting patterns and some of the several techniques that we want to explore and that you can use as well, right? So one of the first one is the few shot prompting. Okay. So for example, few shot prompting is when I mentioned give some examples, give a few examples, more than one examples. So for example, if you are doing translation is your instructions, right? You can give the model saying, hey, examples are hello to hola for Spanish, goodbye to adios for Spanish, thank you to gracias. And then you will tell the model saying, hey, now translate, please. So the model will recognize the pattern, recognize the expected instructions, input and output instruction for you to follow, that you want the model to follow, and it will uh, try its best to follow them. Okay, and few shot is a great technique at that. Now again, there is more, right? There's a chain of thought prompting where you are essentially, again, we're gonna dive deep more into this, but this is where you are asking the model to reason step by step, like, hey, what is 12 plus 15, right? Again, generative AI models are not good at math, okay, because the way they are trained. And so sometimes it is best for them when you tell the model to, hey, think step by step, right? And again, in this example, what is 12 plus 15? Explain how you got that answer. So now you're telling the model to think a little bit on as it's thinking of its answer. That will really give you a really good answer, a good and accurate answer, right? It performs well. And then we have role prompting. Okay, role based prompting is when you're saying, or setting a persona. In the previous example we said a customer support agent, right? A simple example, another one would be you are a helpful AWS cloud architect, right? Explain how EC2 works. What that does is now the model is going to think every time you're asking a question saying, hey, you are an AWS cloud architect. It will think like an AWS cloud person. It will put that hat on. Okay, if it's a customer support agent, it will think like a customer support agent. Okay, so role-based prompting is very important as well, and you will see this in many applications, Gen applications, right? That role-based prompting is always there. This is the prompting, the goal, the instructions, right? And then we also have zero shot prompting. Zero shot prompting is where you essentially just throw in a question without any examples. No examples, just the task. Like, hey, translate Spanish or translate Spanish to English. Hello world. That's it. So no examples, just asking the question, expecting to get an answer. And then we also have multimodal prompting as well. This is where you are asking, like, hey, um, pasting in images, pasting in other types of content as well. And so there are several other techniques as well that we will dive into as well. So we can, I'll give it off to Shashank here to talk more into these advanced prompting techniques.
Yeah, thanks, Umang. I think that was great. Uh, just want to quickly summarize a lot of what Umang already said. You know, in terms of having some tips for writing basic prompts, uh, you got to be specific. You got to be clear. The more specific and clear you are, the better the foundational models are going to respect your prompt and uh, give you a response that aligns with what you're asking, right? Give examples when you need. You got to provide examples as applicable, and then give the model some sort of a role or provide some sort of a tone, format, and style so that the model respects that and responds accordingly. Umang talked about a lot of interesting prompt techniques. I wanted to touch on some of the advanced prompt techniques that are also available. So if you look at this slide, we have four different advanced prompt techniques. So let me go over them in detail, and then we can give you some examples there as well. So let's start with the first one. So prompt chaining. So think of prompt chaining as a technique, well, an advanced technique wherein you split a task into discrete prompts that can be executed sequentially. So what that means is you break a task into multiple subtasks, and each task, each step refines the output. And the real purpose of having prompt chaining is to maintain immediate results in a multi-stage task. So an example of that would be, if you have if you let's say if you want to write three startup ideas in renewable energy, right? So the first step would be, okay, here's a prompt that says generate three startup ideas in renewable energy, and then the next step is going to be write a business plan for the second idea, right? So when you send the first prompt, the prompt gave you three ideas, and then your second prompt is, hey, take the output of my first prompt, and then I want you to write a business plan for the second prompt. So you're chaining your prompts in such a way that they're happening, in a sequential order. So that's the first technique. It's very, very, very useful, especially when you're writing big prompts, right, for enterprise use cases. So I highly recommend you guys think of this. The second example is dynamic prompt templates. So think of prompt templates as options that are available, wherein you store your prompts at in some sort of a template form. So instead of writing your prompts every time you're asking a model to do something, you are creating your prompts and then storing them in some sort of a prompt template, then which can be then reused for some other purpose, right? So if you're writing a prompt for a chatbot, right? So a chatbot can do a lot of different things, right? The first thing a chatbot can do is it can talk to the user. The second thing, especially for agentic-based use cases, a chatbot can do is it can use the information that the user provide, and then it can go in the database and fetch the information. So let's say the get request, the search request, the post request, and then it can process all that information on without any manual intervention. That the third step could be if the chatbot is built for let's say an e-commerce company, the chatbot can also take actions. So it can cancel an order, it can send you an email, it can do other things. So if you have three different use cases for a chatbot, you can have like a prompt template for each one of them, and store all your prompts into the template, and then you can just call that prompt template every time you want to have that specific use case. So again, extremely important use case that I recommend you guys think into it. Uh, then the next two is self-refinement. So think of this as uh, a use case wherein you are asking a prompt to, so you're writing a prompt and then you're sending a prompt to a model, okay? And then you're asking another model to evaluate the response of the first model, and that way and you're creating some sort of evaluation score. So let's say you're using a Nova model, right, which is Amazon owned state-of-the-art models, foundational models that are available. So you create a prompt and then you send that prompt to a Nova model and you get an output. Okay, all looks great. Now you want to test how accurate this prompt is, right? How many input transactions per minute? What was the latency of that prompt? How much output token it consumed? And all the other metrics that are associated with that prompt. So you have that number handy with you. Then you send the prompt and the respond to uh, another model, let's say a cloud model, and get a response from that model and say, hey, evaluate how did my previous prompt input and output perform? And then cloud is going to perform its internal calculation. It's going to provide you with a response on how cloud thinks how accurate it is. So that's one way of you evaluating that model against a different model. The second way of doing that is when the model responds to you, uh, talk to the model, have some follow-ups, and really, you know, make sure that the model is thinking like a human would think, right? So talk to the model, explain them, okay, this is not what I needed. I want some more details on this. So really have like a back and forth conversation so that the model starts to understand what exactly are you looking for, and really gets deeper into this conversation. So that's another great technique that we use to, especially for improving the accuracy and scores, instead of just uh, could be solely dependent on human judgment, but also some sort of auto tuning to increase those scores. uh, Umang already talked about a few short prompting, so I'm going to skip that. One thing that's not mentioned here is something called RAG, so retrieval augmented generation. So think of RAG. I know we have a separate discussion on RAG, but RAG is also can be used as advanced prompting techniques, wherein you are enhancing your prompt with real-time data that's retrieved from external resources. So this could be your databases, this could be your PDFs, documents that are stored in a Google Drive or an S3 bucket. And the goal here is you write your basic prompts and then you build some sort of RAG architecture wherein uh, you are pulling the data from your data sources and then you are enhancing your existing prompts uh, to align with your uh, to align with their business use cases. And also the goal here is to improve the accuracy based on your domain specific knowledge that your enterprise has. Okay, so that's another very, very, very important use case for prompt technique. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so how do you know if a prompt is good, right? So if you write a prompt, you can show it to your teammate, you can show it to uh, other team members, and see what they think. That's a very basic way of evaluating, right? But how do you really know if a prompt is good, right? How do you know when I say prompt is good? Let's think about what that really means, right? Uh, I think the most important thing is going to be the accuracy of the response that the model provided, right? The facts that the model responds, are they actually correct, right? So I think that's a very important metrics to track, right? Uh, and then depending on your prompt, I think another important thing to kind of understand is how relevant it is, right? Uh, did the foundational model respond to the question that you had asked? So that's another very, very, very important thing to know. And then you get into how efficient the model was. Is the response concise? Is the response well structured? And these are some of the things that you would like to track, right? I mean, accuracy and relevance are extremely important, but you also want to make sure that the model is efficient, right? Because as you know, we talked about in the last session, you pay for the number of input and output tokens that the model generates, right? So if the model is not well structured and concise and it's just spitting out a lot of results for your prompt, then you're going to run into cost issues wherein your cost for prompting is increasing. So you want to make sure that it's concise. uh, and then you also want to make sure that the model is clear to understand your prompt. So those are some of the metrics that we like to track. to see how a prompt is good. As I said, showing a prompt to another team member, that's called human in a loop. So wherein you're asking your team members who have expertise in your domain to rate the prompt and tell you how do you think the model did. So that's a very basic way of doing it, and it's also a very interesting way of doing it. A lot of enterprises use SMEs help to evaluate the patterns using uh, patterns for different prompts using human in the loop process. The second way of doing that is evaluating uh, the prompts through a different prompt. So within Amazon Bedrock, we have a feature of model evaluation using a different model. So you take the output of a model and then you send it to another model and then have a model evaluate the response of a previous model. So kind of think of what I was saying earlier. Model evaluates the response of another model and then gives some sort of score and so what it thought it did. The third way of doing that is you can do some sort of A/B testing. So you can have uh, different models uh, in the Bedrock console, and you send the same response to both the models and see how the models performed, right? Uh, and then within the A/B testing, you can also have different versions of the same prompt. So you can write a prompt and then write a different version, but a similar version of the same prompt to the same model and see how the model responded. So you're sending different version to the same prompt in this example. In the previous example, you shared same prompt to two different models. So there are multiple ways for you to kind of evaluate that. So that's another extremely important uh, and these are, on the screen that you see, these are some of the metrics. So Roche metrics, Blue metrics are some of the metrics that we can track, especially for when a model is evaluating the response of a different model. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. All right. So let's talk about some of the real world use cases, what we are seeing in the industry today, what some of the enterprises that we work with are working on. So these are some of the real world use cases that a lot of enterprises are working on. Uh, so the first one is a customer support chatbot. So this is a very common use cases wherein customers are trying to implement and automate responses to common customer queries. So whether these are billing issues or troubleshooting issues in an application, and utilizing LLMs to do that. Okay, so for example, let's say uh, you're an AWS support agent. Okay, if a customer comes to you and say, "Hey, I can't connect to my EC2 instance. What should I do? Provide me with some step-by-step troubleshooting tips." Right. So that could be an example prompt, right? So wherein you are helping your customer troubleshoots an AWS service related issues, right? For example, the other example could be a customer comes to a chatbot and say, "Hey, uh, my order that I placed got canceled. So this is for an e-commerce application. My order get canceled. Can you review my order and provide me with next steps?" So customers in this case are using Bedrock and LLMs for dynamic response. We have a separate survey called Amazon Lex that you can use to build chatbots. And excuse me. So these are some of the tools to use for customer service automation. Then we have document processing. So document processing, think of this as this could be either summarization, uh, extract key insights from a document. So all those other features related to our documents. Use case could be you have these large PDFs. Uh, these are let's give AWS documentation. So you have white papers, pricing guides, and other blogs that related to AWS documentation. Use case would be, okay, summarize these AWS docs and create actionable insights, right? So your prompt would be, hey, I have this summarize the AWS well architected framework into 5 bullet points for a startup CEO and focus on cost optimization, right? That's a very, very, very uh, uh, interesting prompt that you can try out for for the AWS docs to extract the well architected framework. The third one, which is kind of near and dear to me, is a learning coach. So a learning coach could be somebody wherein for the use case is going to be wherein you ask a model to act as a coach, and we have a prompt that we're going to show you later, wherein we are asking foundation model to act as a career coach and providing users with career guidance. So that's another very interesting use case. Wherein the foundation models act as a coach, a code generator. So we are asking use cases wherein the models act as a code companion, and we have out of the box services available, Q for developer that does the exact same thing, but under the hood it uses foundational models to provide you with the entire coding experience, so all the way from software development to unit testing to security scannings to writing documentations, and all of that can be done through foundational models. So these are some of the use cases. The sky's the limit. You can also have infrastructure as a code generation. You can have content generation use cases, writing blogs, creating marketing posts, creating technical documentation. So there are limitless possibilities as to what foundational models can do. Next slide. Okay. So I kind of talked about some of the final tips. Umang also mentioned a lot of them when he was discussing his part. So I just wanted to put it here as well so that you guys can screenshot this if you want to use it. Again, be specific, right? Be as much specific as you can with your prompts. Iteration is the key. Refine your prompts based on the output, and then use the output of a model to refine your prompt and kind of iterate through it. So prompting is more of an art than a science. Create versions of your prompt, right? Create multiple versions of your prompt and use the best prompt for reuse. And always start simple. So start simple, create different versions, and then use the best prompt. How do you define best prompt? Obviously, it's based on your use case, right? The prompt that provides you with the best response is going to be a best prompt. Treat prompts like code, right? Yeah, as you define your code after different iteration. Uh, we expect and we would like you to think of the prompt the same way. Use tools. There are a lot of tools available. Amazon Bedrock is what we highly recommend. So there is I showed you in the last session the Bedrock playground. So use those playground to experiment with different prompts. We talked about versions. Think like a designer, right? So when you're designing um, an application, you think of what the final user is going to like and what the final user is not going to like. So think of like a designer, and your prompt is your interface. So that's a very interesting way of thinking about it. So I highly recommend you guys think through it. Okay, so I think we are done with we are done with week 2. Next week, we're going to talk about some real world use cases and actually building with Amazon Bedrock, where we're going to build something very interesting on Amazon Bedrock. I'm going to hand it over to Umang for the last part of this session. He's going to show us an awesome demo, show us some some prompts that he has written, and I'm very excited for this last part. Over to you, Umang.
Thank you, Shashank. I think that was wonderful. Um, so on the screen here, I have two main resources. On the left side of the screen, we're looking at a lightweight version of Anthropic's prompt engineering tutorial. I think this is one of the really good resources for that I would tell everybody to check it out. So there is this, and again, don't worry about writing this down. We're gonna make sure we link this resource on this video so that way you can go check it out. But Anthropic, as you would know, right, is one of the really good providers and that focuses on responsible AI, and therefore they provide a lot of resources in terms of prompt engineering, responsible AI, security, model context protocol, lots of other stuff. So they created this resource for learners so that way you can be a really good prompt engineer, right? Again, prompt engineering is an art, as Shashank mentioned, right? And if you can harness the power of prompt engineering, I promise you, you will be able to build applications, as you would see in the next videos, a lot better, a lot easier. Okay, this is not going to go away. So you really need to, have a really good grasp on being a master of prompt engineering. So take a look at this video, this resource. You can check it out. It has a lot of you need to set up an Anthropic API key in here. But basically, again, they have instruction how to get started, provide you an Anthropic key. They have some contents in here. They have some exercises, some of the lessons, and building those complex prompts, everything in here, from all the way from basic prompt engineering to those advanced prompt engineering, chain of thought, speaking with Claude, everything in here. So I would highly recommend that you check it out. So now what we are going to do is we are going to use this Amazon AWS console, and we are going to write a prompt. Okay. So, this is AWS console in here, and I've already opened up the Amazon Bedrock. Again, Bedrock is a service on within AWS to play with different Gen AI models. So what we are going to do is play on the chat playground. Let me zoom in for the audience in here a little bit. Let's select the model. Shashank, what model do we want to play with today? Is it Anthropic or Amazon? Which model?
Let's start with my favorite model. Let's start with Nova model.
Okay, let's go with Nova Pro. Awesome, awesome. Um, I think Shashank has pretty much covered this dial that we have in here. So we're gonna leave everything to default. So what prompt are we thinking, Shashank, today? What what should we slay with the prompt today?
Let's use something that I have tried myself. So let's start with a networking prompt, right? For all the networking enthusiastic that we have, you're going to be watching this. So let's type in. We want to learn what is VPC pairing, but we want the model to teach VPC pairing to a sixth grader and use some sort of analogies to explain VPC pairing. I also want the model to keep the response concise. So let's keep it under 100 words. Uh,
Okay.
I think let's try that.
Okay, so we want you to learn VPC pairing. This is a very rough prompt. We're gonna use AI to help us create this better prompt. So we want to learn VPC pairing. We want you to teach this to sixth grader
Yep,
and keep the response concise. I do
and
not
under
know how,
100 words.
and 100 words. Okay,
Yep.
now let's send it. Let's send that first. Okay. Okay, so it pretty much came out with a good response. It says, imagine you have two toy tokens. Yeah, the model was able to follow our instructions. I can see how it is giving us a six graded responses. It keeps the response short. It followed our output
Yeah.
instructions. I think this is good. How about we use this to help us just write a prompt? Like instead of giving me a response, can you write a really good prompt and also explain it to me? How about that? What do you think of that?
Yeah. Let's try.
Okay. Here is a well-crafted prompt. Again, we are using the Nova model, the Amazon Nova model. So it says the prompt is create an engaging and easy to understand explanation. So this is our instruction, right? And then this is our I guess like the scope, or like what we want the output to be. Analogies, like you said, clear languages, how VPC works, its benefits, why it's important, includes examples. Okay, I like this prompt. I do like this prompt.
Yeah. This is very good. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, now let's play with another one. I know you said that learning coach is something that is near and dear to you. Why don't we do something like an AI career coach? I think we had an example here. Why don't we play with that?
I think that's a great idea. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to just start another one. And this time let's play with a different model. Let's use Anthropic model actually. Let's do the 3.7 Sonnet model. That's not the latest anymore, but latest in here. So let's say that, and I already have it written in here. So in here, let's copy this, paste them in here. Okay, so it did not copy exactly the way we wanted, right? So basically, we are saying that, hey, you will be acting as an AI career coach named Joe, right? We're giving a persona here by the company called AWS Careers. And we have the goal in here that we're telling your goal is to give career advice, nothing but advice. You will be replying to the users who are on the Ad Astra site and who will be confused if they do not respond in the character of Joe. That's very important, right? And then we are telling about the tone. The tone you should maintain is a friendly customer service. Okay. Now let's also give some rules that we have, right? These are some of the rules, right? Some important rules: stay in the character. If you're unsure of the response, right? And tell me why this is important. Why is this important, Shashank? On how to, like, if they're not sure how to respond with, say, I did not understand that.
Yeah, so I think a very key aspect of foundational models are hallucination. Okay, I think I touched on it in the last session. Uh, Foundational models have been trained on billions and billions of lines of open source data that's available on internet. And because the models are being trained on such a vast amount of data, sometimes the model starts to hallucinate. And what that really means is they provide you with a response that are A, not factually correct, or B, simply incorrect, or C, uh, not in line with what you're expecting. Okay, so you're asking something and the model is giving you a totally different response, and that's called hallucination. Uh, and foundational models can do that. One way of you, and there are multiple ways you can help models not to hallucinate. One way that you see here is what Umang mentioned is if the model is unsure, so if there is any confusion that the model has in responding to your prompt, okay, this is going to kick in. And because you have mentioned that, hey, if you're unsure how to respond, just say, excuse me, I don't know, I don't understand. Can you rephrase your question? So instead of model trying to assume your prompt, you are telling model to be very specific, right? And trying your best for the model not to hallucinate. So that's one way and very, very important way that you should always have in your prompt so that the model is very specific and not try to hallucinate.
Yeah, and this is key for the next steps in here too, for the advanced prompting or tech patterns of retrieval augmented generation that we'll get into as well. Um, but outside of that, like, we also have an example, right? This is very important. This is the one shot or few shot prompting, right? So I've given that as well. I'm also going to give, here is a conversation history that you would have for the chatbot. We don't have, so I can remove it, I think, right? Because we don't have any history. For the user question, this is where we can pass in the question itself. Um, how did you respond to the user's questions in here? Think about your answer first before you respond. Put the response in the response tags. Okay, so Shashank, what question are we sending to the model?
Uh, so let's ask the model to give you career advice for somebody who has just completed bachelor's in science and trying to become a software architect.
Okay, I just completed bachelor's in science, and I would like to become a software architect. Am I missing anything, Shashank? I think this looks good to me, right? Let's send it.
Yeah, let's try. Again, it's more of an art than science. So based on the response, we can evaluate and refine our prompt.
Okay. So for Joe, the response comes out. Again, it is following the instruction. This is saying Joe. We have the response tags, right? Hello, I'm Joe from Ad Astra. Okay, this is it's following the character, man. Congratulations. It's friendly. Becoming a software architect. It seems to give me a good role. Okay, software architect. Okay, I see. What if we try to break this prompt, right? That's another thing that customer service. What if we say, hey, give me advice for how to gain weight in gym? Do you think it'll follow it?
Let's try.
How do I gain weight and muscles in gym? Please advice. Let's see. Look at that. It is following the
Excellent.
instructions, right? Sorry, I'm Joe. I give career advice. This is very important. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, this
Umang,
is the
let's try to break the response even further for the first prompt.
yeah.
So the prompt said, okay, here are the 7 steps. Let's have a follow-up and say, okay, give me clear instructions on, let's say, point number 4, right? What relevant certifications should I try?
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Wow. This is awesome.
Yep.
Give us some relevant certifications, right? Um, and then I can see that I recommend it gives us personal advice as well. Um,
Yep. Yep.
okay, yeah, this is pretty good. So this is something that we can always also include in our instructions earlier on, saying, hey, be very specific into giving the responses as well. Instead of just giving like, hey, pursue relevant certifications like solutions architect or TOGAF, maybe even take it step further and tell, hey, this is the certifications, and maybe some additional details as well, right? Um, okay, I think this is pretty good.
Yep.
Um, yeah, no. So again, if anybody wants to try this out if you don't have an AWS account, if you have not played with AWS Bedrock, please go check it out. But we'll dive into more stuff into evaluation and everything else. Anything else that we want to share with the learners today? Shashank here today.
No, I think this is great. I hope you all learned something today. Next week is going to be a lot of hands-on. I will in the video description, I will put in Umang's LinkedIn as well as my LinkedIn, so you guys can reach out to us on LinkedIn with any questions, suggestions that you have. But I think it's been great. Thanks, Umang, for your time, and really appreciate you jumping in and helping the audience today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shashank. We'll see you on the next one, all.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye.